Okay, I think the role of psychology in sport there are many different facets to it, but I think the most important thing is to appreciate the different kinds of psychological demands, physical demands, technical and tactical demands that are placed upon athletes in today's society. And it's important for a sports psychologist to actually work with athletes to help them firstly understand the demands and the level of evaluation and expectations which they can place upon themselves or which they experience, and then to try and work on some of the strategies which they can use to help themselves manage the expectations in competitive situations. So you often see athletes' technical or physical or tactical abilities deteriorate in competition, and often the reason for that is because psychologically they're not managing the stress levels effectively, or they're not managing their own expectations effectively, or maintaining a positive attitude. And when that happens, you find that the other skills, technically, tactically and physical skills, begin to deteriorate. So a sports psychologist is there to try and help players understand the process, but also to give them strategies to help manage that situation more effectively. I'm definitely a big believer in that a coach and a psychologist can build team spirit. I think the most important starting point for a coach is to help team members understand that everyone's individual, and that they bring individual strengths and individual differences to the collective of a team. And the more that team members can understand each other's individual strengths and respect differences, the more they'll actually build a stronger team spirit over a period of time. I think the other thing that helps build team spirit is spending time on athletes' communication skills to each other. So giving the chance and giving the emphasis as a coach on the way that athletes both give and receive information within matches, before a match and also after a match. That builds team spirit. And the final thing is actually helping the team members to collectively come up with what the most important team goals are for a season, and then owning those goals and trying to work at the processes that they know as players they should work on together to help them to achieve those goals. So there's some ownership that players have rather than the coach directing the goals all the time. The most important starting point is to consider a player or an athlete who is a strong player from a technical and tactical point of view within the team. So we're not talking here about a leader who maybe is a fringe player who has to maybe fight for their place. I think that a leader should be probably a senior player, but certainly a player who is guaranteed a place within the team on the basis of their ability. Because in that respect, they're more likely to be respected by team members for their physical, technical and tactical abilities. However, the most important thing from a psychological point of view is that they have good communication skills with both yourself as a coach. They have good communication skills with fellow teammates and have close relationships with senior players within the squad. And that they also, from your perspective, seem to value other players' input as opposed to being a very autocratic and a very telling-oriented leader or captain, that they actually do value other members' opinions. I think they should also have quite a good level of emotional intelligence, whereby they manage their own emotions very well as a player and have a strong temperament. But they also empathise and manage other people's emotions as well on the pitch, so that it's a football match or a game situation, they're able to keep the pitch emotion level down and maintain the stability and temperament of the players on the park. Probably four or five things which I think come to mind. I think first of all, one of the key areas for a coach and a sports psychologist working together is how a coach can implement more psychological strategies within a coaching session. So teaching a coach to do more sports psychology training within a natural coaching period, natural coaching practice. I think the second thing is being aware of supporting the coach's management and leadership style of players. So trying to observe the way that they communicate with their members of the team before a match or during a match or after the match on the touchline, for example, and providing advice on more improved ways of communicating, or even reinforcing the strengths of the way that a manager or a coach actually communicates with their players. I think that's an important skill that the psychologist plays in the relationship with a coach. I think also there's advice that a psychologist can give on a coach motivating a team for a particular game, or trying to identify maybe specific goals that the coach can introduce or work on within a training session or a match situation. And I think the last thing that a coach can learn from a psychologist, or a psychologist has to pay attention to, is maybe dealing with the player who's injured and making sure that that coach doesn't neglect that player or give little or less attention to that player just because they're injured, and that they work together on bringing that player back through an appropriate rehabilitation process and involving that player in the team. I think that depends greatly on your relationship with with that particular player. The most important, I guess, principle I have is for any player who's just lost an important match, it's to let their emotions, let the outcome sink in and the emotions sink out. So the player has to come to terms with the outcome. On that basis, probably to leave them alone and let them come to you when they're ready. So it's not your performance, it's their performance, and therefore they'll come to you probably when they need you, if they have a good relationship with you. So I think that's probably the most important principle to follow: let the emotions sink out, the outcome sink in, and then probably what you would say to them when they do ask for your support. Well, hopefully it'll be involved around looking at what the most positive features of the performance were, and trying to draw out some learning from the situation, and maybe to try and help develop some goals and a focus for training, or a focus for the next competition, and build on the experience positively as a learning experience. Particularly the case if they have lost an important match but they are competing again very shortly. That's an important thing to consider.